So I just want to say hello to everybody. This is Plymouth College of Art. This is part of our Pro Talk series. Hosting it today is the Fashion Media and Marketing cohort. And I'm going to introduce you to Sophie Buick, one of our third year students, who is going to be our chair and introduce our guest today.
Okay, so today we are joined by Lucy Wheeler, who is an XR artist and creative director of The Immersive Kind, and Mara Ungley, who's a fashion media practitioner and curator of digital and interactive experiences. And they're from The Immersive Kind, which is a multidisciplinary collective exploring a tomorrow that is inclusive and sustainable through creative technology. And they're here today to tell us how this can be applied to the fashion industry. So they're going to show us a presentation, and if anyone has any questions, if they put them in the chat, we can ask them at the end.
Thank you for the introduction, and we're so excited to be here. And it's personally very exciting for me because I'm from Devon, and it's exciting to be talking to you all from Plymouth College of Art. And my name's Lucy Wheeler. I'm the co-founder and creative director at The Immersive Kind, and I'm also an extended reality artist. And I've been working in fine art for about 5 years, or probably I did do an art foundation, so I've been doing art for a while. I only really got into digital technology of emerging technologies, which is things like virtual reality, advanced technology, a bit later on. So I'm just going to introduce Damara, and then we'll go through a little bit more into depth about our backgrounds and why we got what we've got advice in with the fashion world. Damara, please.
Hello, my name is Damara Inglês. I'm a recent graduate of fashion media practice and criticism. I come from a background of fashion design and fashion criticism, and use technology as a lenses to sort of criticize fashion and fashion practices. I'm very excited to be here today. I'm also a recent member of The Immersive Kind, and I'm very proud to be part of this collective and to be part of this wave of change within the industry. So I think we're going to have a lot of great topics and discussions here today.
So I just wanted to introduce Kadeen James, who I've been working with for 2 years now, and she's the CEO and founder of The Immersive Kind, and she's one of the top 100 women in tech UK, and she also collaborates with leading artists, architects, designers, creators, technologists, galleries and institutions around the world. And she's been working in emerging technology for over 10 years now. So she's been at the stage where it's really started to evolve and become part of the public use. And we together started The Immersive Kind, and we've been really interested in this interdisciplinary mindset, and hopefully soon you'll be able to meet Kadeen, maybe in the future. I just wanted to introduce you to her. This is also an avatar scan of Kadeen. That's a 3D. It's been scanned by more of a high-tech 3D scanner. So you can see already that people are using their 3D scan for their digital identities. And then I was just going to give a little bit more of an in-depth introduction to myself, and and the journey of how I've got to where I am. I went to Totnes Art Foundation, and then went to University of the Arts London to study fine art. At the beginning of my degree, I was actually painting, sort of trying to do collages, but I was doing a painting degree. And that was the way for me to find a way to get into technology. I used collages as a way to create stories. And then I went into video editing and manipulating videos. And then that went further into 3D design. And I also use a lot of open source software, which we'll talk a bit more about later. And we've been, after my degree, I was really interested in exploring a sustainable future for the Earth, but also for this metaverse. And the metaverse is this idea of this world, this virtual world that's going to exist alongside us, and it's going to exist with the real world, but it's also going to generate on its own. And this hasn't yet fully formed, and it's something that all of you are going to possibly experience if it ever does fully form, because as this new generation. So that's what I'm really interested in my research. And as an artist as well, I apply this to my art practice. And also, I'm also a digital technology technician at London College of Fashion. I haven't put fashion there, but London College of Fashion. And I'm just going to now hand over to Damara.
Sure. So, oh my God, I'm going to tell you a little bit of my journey and how I got to work with extended reality, which is definitely not somewhere where I would expect to be today. So my creative process and path has been kind of a surprise for me as well. And it has more to do with intuition and curiosity than necessarily imagining where I want to be in the future. So at the age of 15, I decided that I did not want to study law like everyone else in my family, and that I actually wanted to study fashion design. So I went to a professional high school fashion course, and it sort of opened a lot of doors for me. I felt that perhaps fashion design wasn't really my thing. Fashion design is quite limiting at times in terms of materials, in terms of trends, aesthetics. And I always wanted to create sort of a world of my own. So I went on to work as a freelancer on theater wardrobe, on lots of styling, writing, and as a model as well. So this side of performance in front of a stage or in front of a screen also comes very natural to me. Then at the age of 21, I moved to London to study fashion. At first, I was very disappointed because none of the degrees to which I applied actually took me. But then I had the amazing luck of finding the Fashion Media Practice and Criticism course. And I was completely overwhelmed because throughout my fashion path, I always thought, okay, fashion is amazing. These designers are great. I love what I do. I love my industry. And as soon as I start studying fashion criticism, I start understanding everything that is wrong with the industry. The fact that fashion is the second most polluting industry in the world after oil. The fact that fashion does not represent a variety of bodies and ethnicities. The fact that you can have a first row with people from all over the world, but when you actually sit on a board inside a fashion company and a fashion brand, everyone is pretty much white and male. So this changed my perspective of the industry. I kind of fell out of love with fashion until one day I went into Primark right after I watched The True Cost. That is a great documentary about fashion and pollution. And I went into Primark and I saw all of these like thousands and thousands of shirts that had exactly the same shape, exactly the same material. And the only thing that changed was maybe a phrase that was written or the color. So I thought, why instead of making all of these shirts, they don't make just one shirt and then you're able to change the content digitally. And that's how my path sort of started. And I started working a little bit with digital collage, then a little bit with virtual reality, until eventually I got to where I am today, which is working with different sets of technologies from augmented reality to virtual reality.
That was a wonderful story about your beginnings as a fashion tech cyborg, Damara. And then the immersive kind, I just wanted to introduce to you all the immersive kind. It's a multifaceted art and advanced technology organisation that amalgamates as an extended reality creative studio, a 24/7 online global community, and open digital arts platform. It is made up of a multidisciplinary and expansive team of artists, creative technologists, fashion designers, neuroscientists, artificial intelligence engineers, data scientists, and bioarchitects. So as you can see of the list of all the people that we work with, we really enjoy this idea of challenging the linear of what one discipline is. So what happens when the architect works with a fashion designer and an artificial intelligence engineer? This is what's really attractive for the immersive kind, is discovering and bringing minds together that might not necessarily get the opportunity to work together and collaborate. And this is when new exciting things happen, and we can change the problems that are happening, and maybe start to put a dent in the world, and hopefully inspire more people to create for good with technology. We're also a creative studio, so this is where we all work together, and an online community. So we really are really committed to supporting emerging designers, emerging technologists. So it would be great if any of you are interested in speaking to us in the after the lecture. Please do.
Lucy, sorry to interrupt. There's a bit of feedback, I think, on your mic. I don't know if there's anything you can do about it, and it's not stopping us hearing you. But
sorry about that.
It's okay. I don't know. We can hear you. It's just we wonder if we can hear you.
Because I don't think I have anything up twice.
Yeah, don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Right, where are we? Thank you. So this was an event we did recently. I'm just going to play while I talk over this. We invited lots of designers and artists who were who are at the forefront of fashion disruption. And we split this curated event into material innovation and virtual fashion, and how that's making an impact. We had artists such as Scarlett Yang, which is an emerging bio fashion designer who graduated from Central St Martin's. Lachlan Dix, who's from Condé Master College, if you've heard of that, that's another college. Damara as well. And we also were really interested in talking to people who were also working in the real world as well, and using these digital technologies to create garments. For example, digital knitwear designers. So they've got to develop a craft very specific to them. And digitally knit, and that's something that I find really exciting, especially as at the moment we're seeing digital fashion as quite as simple designs, but with this digital knitwear, with these tools, that you can see that there's these other sorts of disciplines that can also make an impact in the real world as well as the virtual world. So we talked a lot about artificial intelligence. We also spoke about democratizing fashion as well. And this is where we really had a great time chatting and seeing how different people are approaching the fashion industry. And it's really important to note that some people, when you're working in technology, you can come into the fashion world as well, hence why it's democratizing fashion. You don't need to have to go through an education of fashion to get into fashion, and vice versa. Say if you went into fashion, you could then get into technology. There's lots of exciting things happening with this. And Damara spoke a little bit about material innovation here. Damara, would you like to say a little bit about materials?
Right, definitely. So, I mean, when it comes to my practice, personally, the notion of material innovation for me has a lot to do with what is material and what is immaterial. And I think that these lines are blurring a lot, especially living through this pandemic and spending so much time isolated at home. The notion of materiality and connectivity is ever shifting. So I start exploring and researching what is the notion of material for me in relation to dressing my virtual body. So my physical body is dressed by cottons or silks or leathers, because it reacts to the environment, the physical environment where it is. If it's cold, if it's warm, if it's raining or not. In the virtual space, it's different because you are under different um, environmental circumstances, if we can use that word. So, for example, a virtual material can be a sound that makes you feel comfortable and cuddled. A virtual material can be a collar, just a simple collar wrapping around you, and just the sensation of calm, or that collar gives to you. I'm also very interested in the notion of materials and dopamine, the idea that different colors create different levels of stimulate different levels of dopamine in the brain, and how we can then use this knowledge to curate specific experiences to each person. And I think that when it comes to virtual materials, we can definitely expand just beyond color and think about what virtual materiality would mean, which I think it's very subjective to each person, to how you relate to your virtual body, to your virtual identity, which themes are relevant to you, and what would you want to virtually wear or show.
Yeah, that's very well put. I think this idea of materiality and what is a material, what different materials do we use, do we see? Because in the real world, we're touching, and there's a lot of touch and feel as well, and that's something that still needs to be worked towards in within the virtual space.
Yeah.
Haptics, that is. Just going to quickly say that we've also worked with Brazil Immersive Fashion Week a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about the future of fashion and digital consumption, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well today. But I just wanted to share this with you all, and so you all can research them, because it's quite recent that they did this. So there's going to be a lot of information on their site as well about immersive fashion and what's happening in Brazil, and also who they're connecting with. So that's really exciting, because I think there's something they sort of started to realise. They wanted to be that space to, for South America, for people to have an opportunity to see who's working in Brazil, but then also equally who's working outside of Brazil. So I just wanted to share that. Have a look at that after the lecture if you like. And then this is our recent project that Damara's sent a link to on the chat, and we released a limited edition drop. So it's an AR filter designed by Damara, and Damara is going to talk a bit about that as well. But we really were interested at the Immersive Kind. We're really interested in how these extended reality projects can become accessible, how we can challenge and use these platforms as a way to present other ideas and start to really push the boundaries of how you experience fashion. So I've just written a little list here. I'm just going to play the video here. This was our sort of pre-video of us together wearing it, and you should all be able to have a go at that through that limited edition link that Damara sent. Damara, do you want to... one other thing, actually, we're also really interested in these digital collections and how they can go onto the blockchain. And the blockchain is basically this. I researched it this summer because I wanted to understand it in a bit more detail. A blockchain is basically something that is, it's got like a sort of signature or a stamp or a piece of code that is attached to, for example, a digital garment or something that's sold online, and it's immutable. That means that once you've purchased the item, another code goes on top. So this one never goes. So you can track where anything is going, and no one owns it because it's owned by multiple people. I hope that makes sense. But digital fashion, a lot of people are really interested in that, and I think it's quite important as a way for creatives to keep their data. We're going to talk a bit more about data as well in a bit. Damara, do you want to talk a little bit about your project, please?
Sure. So I just shared the link with you guys where you can try on the filter, maybe now, maybe later. I 100% advise to record it, full body or in front of full body mirror, so you see the best parts. This piece is titled Symbiotic Wear, and I developed it earlier this year as part of the Fabric of Reality. The Fabric of Reality was a project developed by the Fashion Innovation Agency and Verizon Media, and it was exhibited at the Museum of Other Realities. We were given the challenge to design the first ever fully immersive fashion show and fashion experience. And this is a very sentimental piece for me, because it was not just a fashion show that was immersive, but the process of making this piece in itself was immersive. It was about over a month working at least 3 hours per day in VR. So I definitely tell you one thing, the notion of body that I had at that time, working intensely in VR for hours for over a month, was completely different. My dreams were in virtual reality, basically. And this was an amazing process of design, because the artist that I was collaborating with, Sutu, designed this amazing immersive story world that was kind of the habitat of this garment. And then I got to spend a lot of time in that story world before designing the garment. This was not made on purpose. It was actually a mistake. Due to the whole pandemic situation, it was really hard to send the VR headset in time and send all the tools in time. So I spent a lot of time just diving into the virtual space and thinking about how my body would react or how my body would want to be dressed, to be part of that space. So it was a very performative process as well. I would be inside the virtual space and then be drawing these lines in field brush around my own body and creating natural shapes to my body, because the title of the piece is Symbiotic Wear. And I wanted it to feel very spontaneous in how my body is kind of shifting and changing to adapt to that system and that place. And after we finished this project, I decided that I would take symbiotic wear to keep on shifting and changing, to respond to different briefings and to different collaborations. So this was an amazing opportunity to collaborate with Immersive Kind, with the Brazil Immersive Fashion Week. And I made some changes in terms of color, in terms of material. And it's very curious because virtual, like material clothes, will look always the same in different mediums. If you have a white t-shirt, it's a white t-shirt. If you wear it, it's still a white t-shirt. If you take a photo of it, it is a white t-shirt. But when it comes to virtual wear, depending on the platform where you are inserting it, the rules are completely different. The set of materials that you have to choose from are different. The physics are different. So this piece on Instagram looks completely different than what it will look in Snapchat. And that's what is very exciting about this symbiotic process as well, because it's not just these limitations or the guidelines of each software. I think it has also to do with how the audience and the users behave in different platforms as well, and the kind of content that they expect to see. I'm very excited and very much looking forward to the future and see where this could go. We were also very excited to make this, limited time drop. So the link lasted for 24 hours. Only up to 50 people could have access to it. So it was a matter of who gets the information first, goes there and uses it. And it's, in a way, is that process of not having to wait for the clothes to be produced so that you can wear it, because virtual clothes don't have to be in a system of mass production. You make one copy and then you duplicate it to oblivion until you want. So we wanted to add a value, a moment value in this piece. That's why we made it of limited access and of limited access in time. We also wanted to play a little bit with that idea of fear of missing out, that idea of something like the clock is ticking, so you have to go and grab it. You cannot, we are very used to feeling very comfortable with our virtual assets, right? Like they exist forever in a hard drive and you don't even know what you have anymore. We're just hoarding virtual information. But when you have a virtual asset that has a limited amount of time to exist, then there's a sense of urgency and a need of participation. So I think this is a great example of what we might see in the future of a virtual / hybrid fashion industry, where you can have a physical garment and then a virtual garment that is superimposed on the physical garment. And there are also other aspects of digital interactions. The hype of drops, for example, with Adidas and Yeezy or Supreme, receiving information beforehand, getting a notification when a product is available, and you have to go there because you know that very soon it will be gone. So we are playing with different elements of virtual and digital citizenship, and then adding it into a visual artistic project. So it's an artistic project, but it is inspired on very specific paths of behavior within digital platforms.
That's great, Tamara. I'm just trying to go to the next slide. So I just wanted to talk to you quickly about what does digitalization mean to creators, just in case you needed to sort of think about that as well. Like, what does it mean to you as a creative or to you working with creators? It's an alternative to real life making and craft. I think it's about acknowledging that it can exist alongside us. It is something, to me, it's also about like the fact it is part of our lives. So therefore, and it's something that is really a big part of innovation for humans in the 21st century. That's one really important thing to accept, and also to think about how it's working with reality as well. It's allowing us to be able to connect across the world through online and social media platforms. And it's a medium that can express current things that are happening between society's relationship with technology and us and nature. There's a lot of things that you can express by using the 21st century tool. It's not yet fully explored. There's always something to update yourself with. There's always something different to try out. And then with technical skills and strategic knowledge, creatives can gain industry opportunities to collaborate. So this, to us, it's like, what role does the next generation of designers, of people working with the designers, of marketing organisations, what do they have to play for the future of digitalisation? How do you want your life to be? Do you want how do we see digitalization fitting in our lives, in our lifestyles, in the way we consume? There's a lot that's still to be addressed, a lot to be sorted out still. And I also wanted to just talk to you again quickly about what the difference between immersive technologies and digital technologies is. First, I'll start with digital technologies. They're electronic tools. It's very, very broad. The word digital fashion, digital art, that is very broad-reaching. It means computers, it means Mac OS, it means Adobe, it means open source, it means phones, devices. It's a very big word to use, and I was recently talking about that, and they asked me, what do you mean by this? Because there's a lot of different words if you do want to communicate a specific part of digital technologies that you can talk about. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And then immersive technologies is more about immersion. Immersion is something more to do with a cognitive and emotional engagement. It's sensory. It's something that immersive technologies such as virtual reality can enable. But immersion is something where the person feels that they've been taken to a different space. They're in another reality, and that is quite hard to achieve. And that's a big thing that people, especially when they're creating experiences, consumable experiences, that they need to think about. And a big one at the moment that stops a lot of projects at the moment is haptics. And so the terminology, if you all want to see this, wow, that's really useful. So these are all digital technologies, as advanced technologies. And so if you see these words, this is what it means. Really, I should have put the brackets around the acronyms, but there we go. So we've got artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. These are all to do with working with the machine learning things. It's a collaboration between human and machine. And another strand is extended reality, which you'll hear a lot now, because a lot of the time augmented reality and virtual reality and mixed reality, they can transport across different realms, different ways of speaking, as experiencing, as Damara alluded to with the project that she made. And these can all be made on game engines. So that's your little introduction, if you didn't know.
Sorry, Lucy. I would just like to make a note in relation to the immersive technologies and immersive spaces. The notion of it, well, it's relative depending on which cord you're pulling, but the notion of an immersive technology or an immersive platform does not only have to do with technology and with being in VR. Immersiveness has more to do with the emotion connection that you have to that space and with other players inside that space, and that you all have a collective goal that you want to reach. So, for example, social media is a great example of immersive spaces and immersive platforms that are not necessarily gaming platforms, because you are constantly immersed in your, for example, Instagram profile, constantly interacting with other players, the other users. You also engage in co-presence, meaning that you and other users are in that virtual space or digital space or immersive platform together, and communicate within that space and follow specific rules of that space. An immersive space is a space where you are held accountable in a way. It's a space where you don't just behave in any way you want to behave. There is a sort of social guideline in how to engage in these immersive spaces as well. And in this sense, social media would be an immersive space because you are co-playing with other players and you all have the goal of ultimately reaching popularity or influence. So I think it's very interesting to think about social media as as immersive platforms. So in that way, we can think of ourselves as physical or biological avatars of those immersive digital platforms. And therefore, how will you dress your avatar inside that platform? And I think that's a great tension point to think about virtual fashion as a tool to express and dress your digital avatar or your social media avatar versus then virtual fashion as a replica of the fashion that already exists in the material world.
Mm, yes, that is a good point. And with a little bit more, just so you can understand what digitalization in fashion is, I think we think that there's two strands. There's the inventors, the creators, innovators, problem solvers, and then there's the consumers and the digital citizens. And it's interesting, like for people working in this space, to think about where do I fit. Obviously, we all fit in the consumption, but how do I want to make a change in that space? Do I want to lead on the consumption, criticize it, or find new alternatives, do marketing for different ways of consuming? Obviously, that's an inventor as well. So it's good to just think about those two sort of places. And I'm aware we've got, and try to be quick. We've just got some questions here with the invention, which we're all trying to find still. It's something that we all ask ourselves at the immersive kind and try and tackle. And these are all big questions. How can we create new narratives with technology? How can we solve 21st century problems? How can we push technology towards a more sustainable and democratic future? What are the inclusive alternatives to fashion's industry, especially when it's fast fashion? What are those alternatives? And then we've got democratizing fashion here. This is something we could talk in a lot of detail about. But digital re-embodiment is a big thing, I think, that I've seen a lot of. And it's you can really see this emergence of avatar designers, people finding ways to change the way they look. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? If you're enhancing yourself where it's fitting to society, that's a big concern. But it can also be a release. It can be freedom for some people, like the immersive kinds. Recent artist in residence, they used their avatar creations as a way to explore gender dysphoria. And Marcella Balterit, they did a fashion degree, and they said that they wanted to start to think of, they felt like they were dressing people and they needed to look back at the body and explore that. So that's interesting as well. And digital fashion is something that can also dismantle the hierarchy of fashion houses. There's something exciting about having being collaborative and having this sort of new space to challenge this, and of course open source software. This is Damara's work. Also, inventors can create speculated worlds. That's a really exciting part of what digital, like what can happen with digital, creating these speculated worlds, present futures of the current world around us. Speculative design. I think that there's this really big, powerful thing that world building projects can really inspire and change the way designers are thinking about the applications of what they're doing in the real world, and presenting real world problems, fabricating immersive experiences. And this is my work. I just thought it would be nice to, this is like used on Unreal Engine, and it's actually, it's not meant to be just black and orange, it's meant to be lots of different colours, but because of the technology, not because of Unreal Engine not being there yet, it's only black and orange, because I want to make basically like a tiger print mixed with petrol, and looking at this sort of very rare endangered animals print and how it's used across in the world and seen as a luxury, but also combining it and mixing it with oil, this parody between something that we see as very accessible but that is also running out exploitation. So I just wanted to show you that there's all these exciting, these imagination and the way that you can show your work and you can take yourself to a whole new environment. So there it is. And collaboration. Damara, do you want to talk a little bit about collaboration?
Sure. I think that for me, the one most important tool of my creative path towards technology has been collaboration and finding amazing groups and collectives that can teach me things, not just in terms of skills, but that can also help me navigate through my thought process and through the meaning of what I'm making. When I first started working with technology, I just felt like I'll never be able to do this. I don't even know what anything here means. I don't know how to code. And everything looks very difficult. Everything looks very mathematical. And that's definitely not my direction. But afterwards, I found amazing groups like the Immersive Kind or Digi Girl. And these are groups that are there 24/7 with people from all across the world, in Telegram groups, in Instagram chats, where you're designing something at 3 a.m. in the morning and you don't know what else to do because you cannot compress your mesh or because something in the software is not working as you expected. And very easily someone will always be there for you. That's why I see technology as an amazing tool of making fashion more inclusive. Because although it requires access to certain tools, I mean, a computer, it also allows you to grow very quickly and learn very fast because it's in a different system of learning. Like I studied fashion media in university, and I learned with fashion media tools. I learned how to write an article. I learned how to make a styling. But to actually design virtually, it's a completely different process because there is no specific formula. There is no antique reference to it. There is no storybook that tells you how virtual fashion is meant to look like. So everything is very experimental, it's very intuitive, it's very spontaneous. The most amazing materials come out of glitches and computer mistakes, and you're just like, oh my God, I have to save this. So collaboration is definitely a big part of learning how to interact with technology. Also learning from other technologists to understand the issues and the potential solutions to digital design, because we can't just be utopian and think that everything will be solved through technology. I fetishize technology and 3D design a lot. When I first started going through there, like, yeah, I'm going to save the world. But actually, no, a Google search is the equivalent of turning on a kettle until the water boils. So there are consequences to this. And learning with other technologies, people that have been working on this longer than me and that have come across texts that talk about this dystopian side of technology as well, in ways that my technology related practice is not just about being pretty or developing as many copies of something as I can, but it's actually about also being inclusive of the environment and the world we live in.
Yes, that's very well put. And that's something that we really want to talk about with you, with consumption, because I think there's this power to having the skills of the 21st century, putting yourself out there and challenging what's happening, even though we might feel skeptical about what's going on. I think there's this really exciting opportunity for our generation in our 20s to be able to challenge where is the technology reaching? How can we reset our values in the fashion industry? What is happening to digital consumption? We really think that this is a really pressing thing, digital citizenship. Social media presence, data rights. Do we have agency in this? It's not, we don't have any agency. We're living in an algorithm where lots of algorithms are being recorded. But how can we change that? How can we change the next digital era? And fashion is a great way that we can challenge this, communicate these ideas, these pressing topics. What do we see the future generations being like? This is really exciting, and we're talking a lot about this with Damara as well in our work that we're doing with the immersive kind. Damara, do you have anything to say about this? It's a really big topic.
It's a huge topic. But definitely digital citizenship, like citizens of where, there is no specific digital country or place. There are several digital platforms. So we become citizens of these platforms, but we don't vote. We don't elect anyone. Like Mark Zuckerberg is not necessarily held accountable. He will not be taken off his company because we are upset with Cambridge Analytica. So it's a big, broad subject to think about, but we also have to start thinking about our rights inside digital platforms. Supposedly in 2018, personal data became more valuable than oil. So it means that our information, our collective information, has become more valuable than any natural resource out there in the world. And if we got paid a partial part of the money that these companies make with our information, maybe everyone could, just keep a part-time job. So we really need to think about our digital citizenship, not just in a way of expression and accessibility, but also in a way of holding these platforms accountable. It's upsetting that in the 21st century, my Instagram keeps on being taken down because of my nipples. It's upsetting that a computer can weaponize my body and my sexuality. And it's not even a person, it's an algorithm that is judging me, a human. So these are questions that we really have to start putting forward. I'll just mention this social media platform. It's newlife.ai. I'll actually write here. And it's a great newlife.ai. It's a great artificial intelligence / disruptive social media platform where you have a ranking of over 24,000 people and you see your position in the ranking. So they're literally playing with this whole like gamification and competition. Also in these social media, their main goal is to decentralize virtual content and digital content, because the big problem for us as innovators and future thinkers is that in the end of the day we all end up consuming the same things as everyone else, and it's hard to come up with different recipes if you all have the same ingredients. So this platform is great to be able to find artists and visuals that you would never see on Instagram. And coming to this notion of digital citizenship, in this platform, the founders, one of them a Black woman, have this Telegram group where you can chat with them at any time and complain about your ranking. You can ask where your information is going. Actually, they pay you with tokens. Any part of their information that they sell to a brand, you receive in tokens with chat posts that you can make. The artificial intelligence system also allows you to deep like content. Because the idea is not to just scroll to 1,000 things and not actually see anything. In this social media, you have one image at a time, and it's not the double tap that we almost do that, like, oh, I know this person. Like, I don't even see the content. I'm just like, or I just see that my friend also liked it. Double tap, I don't care. In this platform, literally, you just see the image, and then the ranking of the image depends on how long you press onto the image. If it's just a tap, you liked it 1%. If you spend 10 seconds pressing the image, you liked it 100%. And then the algorithm asks you, why did you like it? Is it the composition? Is it the skin? Is it the lips? Is it the clothes? Is it the fashion? And in this way, you can actually, as a creative, you can directly understand why people are liking your work. And as a digital citizenship, you are also very encouraged to impose yourself and to speak up in the platform and to say that, no, this is wrong. My ranking went all the way down and I'm always here, and these new users are up in the ranking. So it's very, very interesting to think about all of these different disruptive practices that are coming up. New Life is only accessible via invitation. So let me know if you'd like to have access. I'll give you the link because I need the tokens.
That's great. I think that was really well a good example of different ways that we can think about social platforms. I'm not going to share this because I think we're running out of time, but if you want to watch this, I always like to show this to people because I think it's quite a good way of thinking about what could happen and critically thinking about showing this story of a shopper with a lot of augmented reality. So look that up. I've left that open for you. And then we're just going to quickly talk about slowing down fast fashion. This is something that digital fashion can help. I would like to say, though, so we are aware. I've been really interested in this idea of what does fashion, like not fashion, what are digital technologies doing for the climate, for the world? Is it helping? Is it not? Digital technologies are responsible for 4% of greenhouse gas emissions, which exceeds the pollution generated by aeroplanes. However, as we spoke about earlier, digital technologies can, as creatives in fashion, they can present other realities. They can democratize fashion. They can do a lot of things. And there is one also very interesting thing is that if the good thing, well, something that digital technologies, for example, the internet, can help with, even though it's not a great thing, is that it can track the way that we use our data. It's more manageable in the way of, for example, where the electricity is being used. Obviously, it's not for renewable resources at the moment, but there is this potential for us to be able to start to see what we're using, what the journey of the fashion garment is, again, possibly through the blockchain. There's something that digital technologies can record things, and that's something that could help, will help slow down fast fashion. This ability to track how we're using, what energy we're using, what resources. There does need to be a collaboration between renewable energy, between governments, between the big tech companies, to find out how we can help, how people creating in the digital space can cut down. But another thing which is interesting is that we think it takes a long time to make digital experiences in fashion, and that then allows people to have more of an appreciation for the fashion. And we have started to see this breakdown of, and people wanting to change the winter the September London Fashion Week, and not have to be sort of bound by one show for the press and for everyone to see it in real life. There is some sort of more globalization in it, in whether that be good or bad. And here I've got one more video to share, and then we're free to talk with you. We've overrun a little, but this is a student from, not a student, sorry, a graduate, so a student last year, from London College of Fashion Design, and they were working with digital fashion to dress Kadeen, as you can see, with different clothes, and that's using Clo 3D. And here is a list of software that I think is probably most of the general ones that you might want to think about when you get started in it. Each program is quite a lot of work. Spark AR is more accessible, but take a photo of that if you want to get into digital, not working in virtual fashion. I hope you enjoyed the session.